You may remember a video made last year about how we gays were doing our utmost to change weather patterns around the globe. Well, it seems that we were not content to destroy crops in America and flood part of England last year. We've come back with a more dastardly and convoluted plan this year. I must have missed the directive in my Gay Agenda magazine. According to American Army General John Sheehan, it was the gays that caused the massacre in Bosnia, specifically the openly homosexual Dutch troops. No doubt they were so busy discussing hair products and singing show tunes that they failed to notice 8,000 people being slaughtered nearby.
Case in point that I'm referring to is when the Dutch were required to defend Srebrenica against the Serbs. The battalion was under strength, poorly led, and the Serbs came into town, handcuffed the soldiers to the telephone poles, marched the Muslims off, and executed them.
Can you tell us what Dutch officers you talked to who said that Srebrenica was in part caused because there were gay soldiers in the Dutch army?
Chief of Staff of the Army, who was fired by the Parliament because they couldn't find anybody else to blame.
And who was that?
Hank van Brummen.
Pardon?
Hank van Brummen.
He even had the gall to name a Dutch Chief of Staff called Hankman Berman as telling him these so-called facts, but had to retract his statement and apologise when the Dutch said that they had never heard of anyone named Hankman Berman. But they do say there is a former Chief of Staff in the Dutch Defence Ministry whose name is General Hank van den Bremen. So is that who General Sheehan meant? It turns out it couldn't have been him either. General van den Bremen says that what General Sheehan says about gay soldiers is, and I quote, absolute nonsense. Bremen says he never said anything like that to Sheehan, and besides, what Sheehan's claiming about Srebrenica is just not true. The Dutch Defence Ministry said that General Sheehan's comments were, quote, scandalous and unbefitting a soldier, and said it was astonishing that a man of his stature could utter such complete nonsense. So maybe we weren't to blame for mass genocide, but we have caused earthquakes in Israel, it seems. Yes, legitimising sodomy causes the earth to fall apart. An ultra-Orthodox Jewish MP, Shlomo Benitzri, is quoted as saying, "God says you shake your genitals where you're not supposed to, and I will shake my world in order to wake you up." So, please watch where you're shaking your genitals, eh lads? And if the earth didn't move for you on that story, we've also been shaking things elsewhere. Just last month, the US government received a petition signed by 1,000 rabbis. They were begging the government to reconsider, I quote, their ultra-liberal, militantly homosexualist agenda forcing highlighting of homosexuals and homosexuality on the unwilling military. How many different variations of homosexual can you squeeze into one sentence? They only missed out homosexualityness and homosexualelephant. Anyway, they claimed that militant homosexuals, or could that be homosexualitants, were directly responsible for the Haiti earthquake. I suppose they've never heard of tectonic plates. And if you ever wondered how the devastation of 9/11 happened, well, we had a hand in that too. The rabbis again, along with Pat Robertson and Jerry Falwell, whatever, claimed that it was a joint project between the American Civil Liberties Union, the pagans, the abortionists, the feminists, and the gays and lesbians. We apparently guided the Islamic fundamentalists on their quest. Highly unlikely, given that they probably hate us as much as Falwell and Robertson and rabble-rousing rabbis do, but hey. Anything else we're going to be blamed for? Oh yeah, a Texan mega-church minister called John Hagee wouldn't accept that Hurricane Katrina was anything to do with cyclonic weather systems. No. Apparently it was because there was due to be a gay parade there on that day that the hurricane hit. It seems there's quite a lot of hot air blows around Texas too. Bringing us back up to date, this dentist, Dr. Robert W. Christensen, warns that America is doomed for murdering babies and allowing gay marriages.
Gay marriage, that's an abomination to God. Does anybody think what two men do when they're in the bedroom together, or two women do, it's an abomination. I can't even describe it. This is condemning this country to a doom. It's going to take the country from being a first-class country to being one that is anything but first class. We will be second-rate. We will not have funding. We'll see all sorts of things happen in here. You know, you think that God can be mocked? No, God can't be mocked.
And getting us back to some earth-shaking is the amazingly homophobic Reverend Clyde H. Higgins via this sick website called ChristWire.org, which he shares with a bunch of fellow haters that Fred Phelps would be proud of. Higgins states, God strikes Iceland with fiery volcanic wrath. Gays are to blame. He whines on, behold God's power. Today the citizens of Iceland flee in fear and panic as God has but snapped his fingers and puffed his nostrils to ignite a volcano with his fury against gays. God is making it known that he sees Iceland is trying to approve gay marriage. It has angered God and he's letting them know the price for being gay is to burn in hell for all time. That's a new one. God is just getting warmed up as this volcano fire is still intensifying and melting Iceland down to its sinful core. Iceland, receive this warning. Reject gays or God will cover you with so much lava that it will have to call you Fireland. It will be the opening to the gates of hell. He goes on through another 2 or 3 reports about how Iceland is now the scene of Armageddon and how much they deserve it. He states, as we speak and you read this, the people of Iceland drown in melted rivers of snow and ice. Their last gasps of breath fall on deaf ears, and when they awaken they will only have lungs filled with sulphur and hellfire for their sins. Glory be to God for their condemnation. So what's the truth of it? The truth is that the volcano with the ridiculously long, unpronounceable name has caused a lot of flight delays in Northern Europe and the UK as planes were grounded as a precautionary measure. Apparently the ash cloud can scour plane windscreens and cause engines to clog up, so they had to wait for it to clear before flying again. But a report from this insurer's underwriters website, who'd obviously be worried in case they had to pay out on such a catastrophe, states that volcanic activity in southern Iceland has disrupted air transport networks across northwest Europe, but has not caused property damage or casualties in Iceland, according to reports. Obviously our powers are waning. Must try harder. Must try harder.
Eyjafjallajökull, Icelandic. Eyjafjallajökull, Icelandic.